sure who the host is, or where the host is, or who's is it supposed to be me? Am I leading this? It is me. Okay, so yeah, that was a surprise. I thought I was just speaking, but all good. Welcome to the NFT Summit with GDA Capital and NFT Basel. We have Hrish and Logik and Grant here. Grant is from Whitley.io, Hrish is from SuperWorld, and Logik is formerly from Google and now full-time committed to the NFT Web3 universe, or metaverse rather. And today we are supposed to be talking about community building and how to build a strong community that has sustainability and longevity, which all of you have successfully done. My name is Eric, or Motivate, as a lot of people know me. Shout out to the pop-up cat that also is working on an NFT project right now with Google. So I guess if you'd like to just give a brief introduction of yourselves, let's start with you, Grant, and then Hrish, and then Logik, and then I'll ask some questions, we'll get some answers, and ideally provide some insight and value for the crowd here.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Appreciate the intro. Appreciate the opportunity to get on here and connect with you guys, share the stage, collaborate a little bit. My name is Grant Wise. I'm the CEO and founder of Whitley.io. Whitley.io is a metaverse marketplace for virtual real estate. Right now, I think there's a really significant challenge when it comes to browsing, buying, renting, investing, advertising virtual lands in each different metaverse. So we've built a platform to aggregate all of those different metaverse properties into one single place to make it easier for people to buy, sell, whatever it is they want to do, and are introducing a sell and earn program. So creating an income earning opportunity for people that want to become digital real estate agents in the metaverse, and really excited about a lot of the work that we're doing, and excited about a lot of the different metaverse platforms that exist. SuperWorld, definitely one of those platforms. I think Hrish and the team have done an amazing job with the work that they've done there, and excited for all the stuff they continue to develop and release. So that's me. Thanks again, Eric.
Very cool. And Hrish?
Hey, thanks again for being here. Thanks for those kind words, Grant. I'm excited about what you're working on as well. And, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to share our mission at SuperWorld. I'm co-founder and CEO of SuperWorld. SuperWorld's a virtual world on top of the real world. It's all around us in augmented reality, and we enable anyone to create, discover, and monetize anything, anywhere in the real world. And then we've divided the surface of the earth into 64 billion properties, each property comprising about 100 meter by 100 meter virtual block of land covering real world locations. And when you become a property owner, you're a stakeholder on the platform, and you can create value, monetize, and discover anything, anywhere.
Thanks everybody for having me. I'm Logik, also known as Julian Gilliam. I am an artist. I'm a builder, community builder in the space. Consider myself a smart contract maxi, always trying to push the potential of the smart contract as far as possible. And I'm a former creative director at Google. Just left about a month ago. Shout out to Web3. Just happy to be here and share and build, and yeah, thanks for having me.
Seems like Eric may have lost the connection.
Yeah, lost him.
I'm going to jump in and ask Logik. What do you find are some of the top community building activities that are crucial right now, especially with the kind of state of Web3 and NFTs? How can people create really engaged communities that move the whole industry forward?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I think in the current state, I think we're a very entitled community. Just at the pace at which Web3 seems to move, it seems like it moves at the speed of light. So therefore, you see a lot of people you see all these success stories. So it's very easy for someone to come into the space to think that it's their turn, But oftentimes in our rooms or in just the things that I share with other people is patience, man. If you look at anybody who's been successful, anybody who's a maverick to any degree, it didn't happen overnight. I remember a lot of my friends who are dictating how we look at and perceive culture, whether it's the way we look at fashion and music. I remember those people sleeping on couches for years on end. But here in this space, we don't want to sleep on couches. We don't want to do things for free, just give a helping hand. We always want to do things with, what are you going to do for me if I did this for you? And one of the things that we got to learn very early on in the NFT space, especially when it started thriving on Clubhouse, was just it was not about the individual. It wasn't about what the NFT can or Web3 space can do for you. It was almost, don't ask what the Web3 space can do for you, but ask what you can do for the Web3 space. And that's putting people on, sharing, not gatekeeping information. And what happens is oftentimes we look at other groups and we want to know, how can I be a part of that group? Why not me, etc. But we need to, a lot of us, I preach to nurture your circles, those people that's checking for you closely, because when we try to go from 0 to 100, we like I said, we miss that sleeping on the couch phase, those stress levels that prep you for when you want to maintain a 10,000 in a PFP community. If you can't maintain a group of 100 or 50, then it doesn't make sense for you to get 10,000. So just maintaining those 50, those 100, even 5 people around you will prep you for those next waves of community, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like to tell people it's kind of my way of viewing the C-suite. I know we don't like using the word community, but community creates connections, connections create collaborations, collaborations create culture, right? So community creating connection, connection creating collaboration, collaboration creating culture, and culture cultivates communities all over the world. So that creates a cycle, as if we need more C's, right? That creates a cycle, and with good leadership from chiefs or captains, or I'm sure there's a lot of other things that can work with that. But that's typically the process in terms of nurturing and cultivating something that's cool. And with creativity, knowing no bounds in this space, because there are no walls, there are no ceilings, there is no floor. Hell, Hrish has a whole fucking secondary world on top of our current one. I'd be curious, what do you feel is the hardest part of starting that whole cycle, that whole process? What is the seed that needs to be nurtured or cultivated to, I guess, spark interest in having group efforts to build something bigger? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, having a vision that resonates with the community is very important, and really arriving at that vision by speaking with the community is also a big part of that. So, I think as you develop your community, you really have to listen and understand what it is that they are interested in. What are some of their problems? What are some of the opportunities that, if you're building a platform or any type of community, I think you have to really understand, as that community evolves and grows, what are the best ways that you can, or the community collectively can address this? Because I think in SuperWorld's case, we're building a virtual world, but we're all building it together. So we're providing the tools, and we're enabling people to build and to create and discover. And they have so many different interests and so many different things that they want to do, whether they're an individual, they're an artist, they're a government, they're a business. And so for us, it's a lot about listening to our community and trying to make sure that our vision and our mission really aligns with what they're saying. And as they grow and evolve, that we're keeping up with that.
I guess listening is important when it comes to being a good leader, and also being able to problem solve and troubleshoot. I think one thing a lot of communities kind of overlook is and then this is just in life in general, but I'd say that when you're doing group projects or community related things, like it's very important to take your time and make sure that you take care of those small, slow burning fires early and at the beginning and address them immediately, as opposed to waiting when there's something huge down the line and they can destroy your whole thing. I built one of the largest, if not the largest, NFT and DeFi communities in the world over the last 2-3 years. And I saw kind of those loose threads and holes in the umbrella in retrospect. And had I recognized them early on by listening to certain individuals, I would have been able to nip them immediately. So, but yeah, same question to you, Grant or Logik, on what would you say outside of patience and listening? What would you say is a key component to successfully building community?
I think it's experience, without question. As I've built numerous communities over the last near decade, the type of experience that you can provide people, the types of engagement that you can create. I think it all ties back to listening, like Hrish said. I mean, you've got to listen. You've got to be in the trenches with the people that you're out there grinding and growing with. But if you can create an experience, and that's a lot of what I see is happening in all of these different metaverses, the types of experiences that are being curated inside of these virtual worlds, it's really cool, like, to watch what's happening, as I believe that, the metaverse is almost in a way like an attention economy similar to social, because the level of value created and curated, the type of experiences that are happening in each of these different virtual worlds increases the overall value, when it comes to buying virtual lands, when it comes to those different types of things. So I think it goes back to experience, and that requires listening, that requires paying attention, that requires engagement and interaction with the people that you're out there building the community. I like what Logik said. If you can't manage a community of 100, you're not going to be able to manage a community of 10,000. Like, there's no way, because it's what you really get in there. And it's even more so important at the first 100 to listen, to interact, to engage, to really kind of steer the ship and move it forward. And the type of experience that you create for those people, that's what scales, if it does. And if you're not providing an amazing experience for people, no matter where that is, you probably are going to struggle, I think.
Yeah, I guess what I want to add, like with the experience thing, is at some point you gotta lead them, right? You gotta take them somewhere. Where are we going? And oftentimes when I'm seeing a lot of these communities or whatever we want to, what do you, customer farming or whatever you want to call it. A lot of them lack a soul. They lack a human connection. And I learned a lot of this from advertising, is most of these things are not solving problems for anything. And the reason why a lot of them are not solving problems is because a lot of people aren't digging deep to even tap into a universal human emotion. And when you're creating whatever you're creating, you should be either invigorating, inspiring, or showing some type of like a shared empathy or empathetic situation or something for a community to latch on. A lot of these things, whether you're doing the fluffy penguins or whatever the hell, and it's like, buy this thing, and it's like, why am I buying this thing? I don't know, it's a fluffy penguin. And it's like, it's not tethered to anything. It's not. And I think when a lot of people who want to create these experiences or create these worlds or listen to the people, before you listen to the people, before you create the experiences, it needs to be rooted in something. It needs to be rooted in something that you actually don't mind living behind for the next 3 years, for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years. A lot of these community things are very short-sighted and lack any type of foundation. So if you want to build a community, reverse engineer why you want to create a community. And the thing is why. And then go back and forth, and then ask yourself, put yourself in the consumer's shoes or a follower's shoes or whatever. Does it serve a purpose? Does it touch me intimately or whatever? Because if we talk about community, I'm all about how do we prep people for longevity versus a microwave situation, which is what we're in within this year. Everyone is like trying to track the market and all this stuff. We don't even have enough data to track the market. We don't even have enough data to understand what's happening. We have a bunch of people in a circle jerk situation championing something that they don't even know what it is. So it's because the lack of culture in the space, et cetera, because right now we just want NFTs and Web3 to win, but we have yet to see the people who have been cultivating culture from a Web2 point of view. Like if you go to, and I'll end on this, when Art Basel happened, it was the most amazing thing because it was the first time devs went to Art Basel. It was the first time devs went to Art Basel. Devs when they create things, they don't create things for user experience. They create it for other devs. So now we have this thing where artists can, or people who've been creating worlds, building worlds in a Web2 environment, void of a sovereignty solution like Web3. Now we can bring in people who create from the heart and soul to come with this Web3 that isn't just a PFP that's not rooted in anything serious or worthwhile. Now imagine all those people who create, for those people that's been touching thousands of people, tens of thousands, millions of people. Now what can they do with the tools in Web3? Now we're going to be talking about community in a whole nother way versus what we have in our small sample size at this very moment.
Yeah, no, you nail on the head. I mean, I think a lot of times in business, right, we look at the B2B, we look at the B2C, but we don't really observe the C2C too much. We don't see the consumer to consumer or, the customer to customer. And in turn, we kind of end up, unfortunately, ignoring the complaint box, ignoring what our community needs are. And when that starts happening, then you start having problems because that shows a lack of humility, a lack of empathy, a lack of listening and patience and understanding. And, these are powerful tools that you just mentioned. And I think using Art Basel as an example, you're definitely allowing the culture and the arts and the music and the fashion and the other components to crossbreed and cross-pollinate to the engineers and the builders and the devs and the coders and designers. And that ideally will showcase that these powerful tools of today can be used to build a more thoughtful, efficient, and equitable tomorrow, because that's what they are, right? These are new instruments, these are new tools in the Web3 toolbox, or Web3 Home Depot or Lowe's, if you will. And, it's almost everything is an experiment at this point. It's where there are no experts, despite what people say. And because of that, it allows for a flexible opportunity for anybody to participate. And so when we're thinking about, things like, I like to say, when you have more than you need, you build a longer table, not a higher fence. And I think this is a perfect example of like accessibility to these things is creating the communities naturally. It's creating engagement naturally. It's creating conversation organically, and it's reinvigorating the social media that we used to have that brought people together, which is now pushing people apart. So we're coming together again, and we're realizing we don't necessarily need the algorithm to dictate what we build and who sees it and why we make it, because we're building almost off grid. We're building in Discords, we're building in Telegrams and WhatsApps and in metaverses. So we're at a very interesting, unique, and pivotal moment in time that I do consider a digital renaissance. And that said, with the future of community, I don't want to go to Bored Ape Yacht Club, another side, but what do you all feel is the future of community? Because we're all building in different ways and bridging in different ways. Even using this platform and speaking like this, we couldn't do this before webcams. We couldn't do this before Wi-Fi. So yeah, what does the future of community look like as we see all of these different iterations spin off of these PFP projects and these alpha groups and XYZ, ABC little cohorts worldwide?
I think community is going to be something that we are able to embrace in a variety of different parts of our lives. So we might have, one community that we are part of, maybe in our our professional life, or maybe a few, and maybe a few in our personal life, and a few in our our educational life as an example. But I think that the interoperability of Web3 enables us to maybe bring some of those communities together in different ways. I think this goes back to what you're saying about C2C, or even community to community, and so I think that what Logik really said about long-term value, and thinking very long-term, and the why. I think those are also very important components of each part of that, each part of your life as you think about what communities you're involved in. I think if we decide to spend time in something, we want to make sure that it's not something that's temporary, because I think we're enabling ourselves to be involved in communities, but we're also now able to invest more resources into those communities, because we know we're going to get a potential feedback, return or benefit from that investment of time and resources. And so I think that the whys are very important, and the long-term value and utility someone feels is important.
What I'm probably the most fascinated by is the way we will be able to interact with each other. Speaking specific more so to what I've seen in metaverse communities. I've had the unique benefit to get to see how a metaverse can really enhance a B2B community, as we look at some of the companies that I've been able to work with over the last few years, how they've built metaverses and begun to globally office out of these platforms, and just the way that it can redefine how they're able to interact with each other. When you build, going back to what Logik said, like when you build an identity within your community and you get 80,000 people, all kind of walking the same direction, it's unbelievable what that really can transform into the types of movements that people can create. But I think that I'm probably the most fascinated with how we'll be able to interact with each other, and the types of experiences that we'll be able to have that I believe that the Web3 space can create.
Building for posterity, for sure. I mean, I think if you have the conviction and the vision to feel that this space is as permanent as we make it out to be, which nobody's a polymath or Miss Cleo here, but ideally you're building with the bigger picture. You're building despite the market dips and climbs. You're building despite liquidity being wrapped into different, like, you're looking at it from all angles. And I think there is a lot to consider when you're building with longevity in mind, and the sustainability component. When you don't have control of that sustenance, you don't have control over the market, you have no control over technology that's bigger than yourself, that leaves you in a very vulnerable position, and it takes a lot of strength and faith and hope in what you're building to withstand the test of time against all odds like that. And I think that's one reason why I really I find it inspiring and powerful to see developers and designers and engineers really rolling up their sleeves and getting their hands dirty despite the odds that they're against. Because literally, you could be working on a metaverse project for 10 years with your team of 10 people, and then maybe a top 40 platform, part of FANG, changes their name to Meta, and now every bit of pressure is on, and now everybody is working on that project just like yours, and now that 10 years might have to be wrapped up in 2 weeks, which is pressure that I don't think anybody should want or need to have. But going again back into kind of what I guess Logik said on identity, this being a quote unquote decentralized space, or the mentality initially or originally when I got into it was all about decentralization and pushing this kind of anonymity. And the more deep I got into it, the more I realized it's not so much about anonymity as it is identity and reclaiming that. Because, the reason that a lot of these communities are receptive to different types of art is because it grabs us. It's emotional. But beyond that attachment is the community that's behind it, right? So the more projects that you're in, the more communities you get to reach. But how many communities can you actually be in? Like, how does it make sense for you to be in like 15 different Discords? Like, are you trying to keep your finger on the pulse of every single move and shaking thing in the space? It's impossible. And because it's on a 24-hour time clock and it never shuts down, unlike the stock market, I'm finding that more and more of these communities really need somebody who is receptive to almost like mental health and self-awareness and giving people breaks and cutting things off, telling people when to chill. So on that side of things with community building, where do you feel like we could improve as, I'd say, a Web3 culture? Because at this point, it is that. It is a new wave. It is a culture with multiple subcultures. But how would you say you see the future of, mental health and wellness in this space, and how it intertwines and interchanges with communities? Because it's a necessity. It definitely is. It was before this, and it will be after this. It always will be. But it's a conversation a lot of people don't like to necessarily have because it requires them to be upfront and transparent about what they're going through. And when you have information and finance moving so fast, I think it's very hard to tell people to pump the brakes and slow down a little bit. So, yeah.
I think what we consider the Web3 culture is about to make a shift pretty soon. Eric, you and I speak about this in our rooms. Facebook is about to introduce NFTs, and which is going to bring a whole nother group of people into the space. If you look at any historic situation in which the inception of something and then something go from the infant stages to pop culture or whatever, we can even see that happen to Instagram when Android got Instagram. The entire landscape of Instagram changed after Android got it. It went from very artistic pictures because that's the type of person who buys iPhones to when Android got it. Now you have memes, you have all these things, people call them trash posts or whatever. The entire landscape of what we considered the community shifted. We saw the same thing happen with NFTs, the community in which we had in 2020 through 2021. We saw the increase of people entering the space weekly. And what happened was it went from everybody being onboarded properly about securities, et cetera, this is the etiquette, et cetera, to then just troves of people coming in. You can't talk to all those people and tell them this is how we do things in Web3. And then even furthermore, when you go to these Web3 conferences, the conversations that are being had on Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces, you find it's just the tip of the iceberg as to how people in these Fortune 500 companies perceive Web3. So furthermore, then we get into Instagram, and now you have people who don't even know we exist on Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces now talking about NFTs. So the thing that we consider NFT communities is going to be a thing of the past, because I don't think they're going to necessarily be communities as much as they're going to be global movements, national movements. You're no longer going to be talking about whoever, whatever in the middle of Iowa. Is going to be about this musician, this person on Instagram. It's going to be a bunch of millennials and Gen Zers or whatever, being able to rally around something that has no boundaries, that has no barriers, that has no Web3 etiquette. So how are we going to confine people and talk about mooning, like the idea of things going to the moon, all that shit out the window? Friends with an ENS is going out the window. It's going out the window. No one's going to be talking about that because people are going to be able to create their own subcultures that are going to become pop cultures. They're going to become movements. They're not going to be dictated by discords and engagement for me on Twitter. It's going to open up a whole nother Pandora box. And going into that mental thing, and I'll just wrap on this, it's all about, I don't think they're going to be dictated by, again, the speed of how we look at blockchain and Web3 right now, because, again, they're going to be able to create their own way they perceive time. And for me, it's all about again, it's all about patience in this moment. And the way I did this for my own mental, I created a project called The Plug that essentially bought me time. So I gamify my collectors. And this is when I go into me being a smart contract maxi. When I dropped my first 3 pieces on Nifty Gateway back in June of 2020, I saw that when artists did drops, they had to go find collectors all over again and do this whole Ruha thing. And I was like, yo, this is not sustainable for how fast this space is moving. So I created a project where I pretty much did a time stamp on how long my collectors support me as an artist. And it's over a year's time, which I taught. So basically, in short, you buy my NFT, it starts at 1%, like a battery on your phone. Every 60 days, it matures. And if you sell my NFT before it gets to 100%, 1%, 17%, 33%. If you sell it before it gets to 100, it reverts back to 1% on the secondary market. And if you hodl it to 100% and stay like that forever on the blockchain, and what the beautiful thing about that is I can isolate my collectors based on how long they've championed me as an artist. Oh, everybody that's supported me for 6 months, I can isolate their ETH addresses and reward them. So what this does is it teaches patience. It buys me time, because mentally I knew that wasn't sustainable, just the way everybody was moving. So I said a lot. I hope you got some things out of there. But yeah, it's the whole landscape of what we consider community and all this stuff is going to change in the next year or so.
I think that's a good example of a use case or a community use case of, by the nature of the beast, you're saying not to look at the floor price, not to ask when Lambo, not to do this, not to do that, but just naturally the progression of your project. Like, people have to be cognitive and conscious of, like, just let it do its thing. Keep checking in on it, catch the updates, see what percentage it's at, like, and then what's next. See how it shifts, from day to night. And I remember when you dropped the piece on Nifty Gateway, which seems like forever ago, where it was in constant evolution, which was so tight because a lot of times you don't really see people pushing the limits on this tech when there's just literally infinite opportunities and endless no boundaries. I can't even talk. No boundaries. So and then Hrish, so SuperWorld allows people to have, I guess, a different perspective in terms of community as well, because what I think is unique about how you're going about it is you can attract people internationally in a digital space that can then showcase things from all over the world in that digital space. And, most of these metaverses, the container is pretty small. And so, you're saying that there is no walls with your thing. And I think that's also a very unique approach that we don't see. I think the closest iteration at one point was like Earth 2 or something. But yeah. How would you say, like, when you aren't in such a multiplayer experience and you are standalone, utilizing a virtual environment to express yourself, how would you say SuperWorld is pushing the envelope and a creative spin on what people believe, what people lead to believe their metaverse experience should be?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question about how someone, whether they are an artist, a musician, a business person, what we think about is, what are all the things that an individual would want to do to express themselves creatively in their work, in their educational life, in their in their personal life, and give them that unbounded way to do that on a global basis, where they live in other places in the world. We've had art being placed in Miami at Miami Art Week from artists who weren't even at Miami Art Week, right? So you can really place content anywhere in the world. But really the idea behind that is, again, as we are moving to a way of life where AI is probably going to be, taking a lot of the mundane kind of work and enabling us to do more creative pursuits, even in our work lives. Our focus is, how do we build a platform that enables people in their personal lives to be empowered, to create, discover, monetize, to build livelihoods. We call it live to earn. And the point there is, if you can provide real long-term value, as Logik mentioned earlier, and give people that real kind of soul and spirit and the ability to, again, to emphasize and express themselves in a way that enables them to align with their own goals. That's what we're trying to do, is give people that freedom and that power. And then the other part of what we're trying to do at SuperWorld is we're saying, what if we could all come together collectively to do something positive for the planet? If we can use these technologies in a way that not only enable us individually, but also enable us to do things collectively, to educate ourselves, to, improve the world, to put resources to work, to be able to, again, have more information and context in ways that we can create more positivity. And so, again, to your question, I think those are the things that we're trying to do. And I think that's a really big part of our community that drives our community, is empowering individuals and empowering and enhancing humanity.
Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead, Grant.
I love everything you guys are saying. I think that if you go back to some of your questions about mental health, I think that like the answer for me is in one word summarized to leadership. Like all of these different spaces, I think no matter where they are, Web 2, Web 3, need some form of leadership, somebody that's willing to be vulnerable, somebody that's willing to share their experience. I tell people often, like, nobody in the world needs your judgment, but every single one of them need your love. And so if we can foster that great connection through community, I think that we're going to be able to see some really amazing stuff happen. We talked about leadership. We talked about identity. Identity creates aspirational identity for the people that are looking on whoever it is that is leading a community or doing whatever it is that we're all doing. And it's going to take leadership, people that are willing to share their stories, people that are willing to be vulnerable, people that are willing to have or do have willing to develop a high sense of emotional intelligence that can just go out there and just share the truth, speak their truth, and hope to serve as some form of inspiration for people to go out there, especially in this space. We're talking about mental health thing. It's like you said, it was important before this. It's going to be important during this. It'll be important after this. It's going to come down to the leaders that go build these communities and the aspirational identities they create. Being willing to be vulnerable, share your story and share what you're going through, and create a safe place where people can go talk about those things, inside of your communities. I think it's really crucial. So I think it's an amazing question, and it's an amazing thing to make sure that we're all thinking about as we build each of us build our own individualized community, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely or at least my motto has always been, take care of the people and the business runs itself. But I've seen what happens when you put other people before yourself, and you're always taking care of others, and you share yourself and spread yourself too thin. And that's when it comes into a question about accessibility. Are you too accessible at all times? Are you always available? Are you always on? Is that conversation valid and valuable? Or by not having it, are you potentially leaving somebody hanging? Are you creating problems for yourself or others? You have to question yourself. You have to really dig deeper a lot of times when you're having these communications. And I think overall, this space is actually helping people become better communicators. It's helping people beat social anxiety and introversion. It's helping people figure out unique ways of having a voice if their actions can't speak louder than their words. And so, automatically this space is creating a lot of unique connections as well as different types of bonding. And I think that's where the community component of it actually is being seen before our eyes. And, even with that, like Logik had the plug thing, like I created a community out of these things, out of these cards, right? And I dropped these during NFT NYC last year, and I said that anybody that had one of these, much like these, right? Anybody that had one of my non-fungible cards was able to join a private chat, and from that private chat, they could show this at any of the events that I was producing, DJing at, hosting, or rapping at, and they'd get in free just by being a part of my community, right? So then now this is a token of transportation. This is a ticket that gives you access to things, that allows you to fast track. You paid the fare one time and it's good forever, right? So with that, it's not even a community that's forged around art, so to speak. It's familiarity, it's connection, it's nostalgia, it's a lot of other things, but you can derive a community around anything as long as they are interested in you as a leader. And that's the difference between me buying something that you're selling or he's selling or she's selling. It's the connection and the human relationship and rapport. And what makes it different is you, because we're all independent. We're all unique. We're all different. So that is one major reason why I love this space. I think it just has so many brilliant minds and talented individuals and so many derivatives and iterations of creative spin and twist on things. And yeah, I guess we have like 4 minutes left here. If there was one big takeaway that you could give that would leave people with more value and they came with on, I guess, navigating this space for success, what would it be? And any of you can take it first. If there's one thing you could say in terms of how to successfully navigate Web3, what would be a key takeaway?
My thing is just lead with intent. And you don't necessarily have to know what your destination is when you first start. Just kind of go with the vibe, go with the wave. And I just can't emphasize patience enough. A lot of us didn't get to where we are at the drop of a hat. Like, it just didn't happen that way. It just doesn't happen that way. The vision doesn't come to you like that. And the people that you need to meet to help you fulfill dreams, it's a story that you got to go through, that you acquire. You met this person 4 years ago just by being a person. Everything doesn't have to be transactional. I think a lot of people who haven't really hustled IRL before come in with a shill off the rip. This is what I do. This is who I am. And if any of us been in any type of social circles where we're doing things not because it's our job that we're getting paid for at 9 to 5, but it's things that we innately do. When you with the group of people that you're building with, that you genuinely are minting these connections with, no one's like, I do this, that, and the third. Is really like, what's your favorite color? How was your day? This, whatever. It was like actually just getting to know someone. And then usually those people that I'm not necessarily breaking bread with initially, I'm breaking bread with them 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line. And it's just really just cultivating those people and just being a person and being present and being able to build when no one is looking. Can you create when no one is looking? Can you create with no expectations of a return on investment? Can you self-invest? Like, self-investment is just in monetary. That's time, that's energy, that's perspective. So if you just take all these things in consideration and just enjoy the journey, that's all I got, man. To be honest.
That's good.
Yeah.
That works. I think a lot of people can resonate with that. Hrish, and then Grant, and then
I love that logic. I mean, I love all the things that you guys are saying, and especially what you just said. I would say, it's really about again doing something that you believe in, and that it's kind of like what Logik just said. Like he said, you're working when no one's watching, right? Because you believe in it, and you got to think long term, because you're building something that is durable, and it's not something that you're doing because you're trying to take advantage of a current trend. I think a lot of people might try to jump in this space because it's hot, or they see some kind of temporary opportunity. But I think this space enables us to, again, really create stakeholders in our community. And it's really important to again, pursue a mission that you believe in, that you'll work on, that you, again, aren't just looking, as Logik said it, for an ROI, but you're looking for a way to make a difference and an impact. And other people, I think, will join you in that mission. If again, again, it starts with you and thinking long term.
I would reiterate what these guys are saying. I think you got to spend your time, attention, and energy intently in things that you believe in. When you do that, you're hardwiring yourself to come more so from a place of growth and contribution, thinking about what you could give more than what you could take. And I think that really subtle mindset shift adds so much value, not only to your individualized community, but then universally as a whole to the entire Web3 space. If we're all thinking about what we can give back instead of what we can take from, man, it really could transform this space. I think it's as an industry craving trust and legitimacy with so many different things, that have taken place over the last couple of years. Just, invest in things that you believe in, and you'll be a lot less apt to look at the signals, the ups and the downs, and more so, committed to playing the long game.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I feel like we've definitely gone far and fast. So we've got the team and we're going along. I think longevity is what we're building for, even though, this is proof of not being afraid of the unknown. For a lot of people, fear is fuck everything and run, or false evidence appearing real, or so many other acronym iterations, whatever. But I think when you're doing it regardless of anything else, that's when you know that you love it. That's when you know that it's like a passion project with purpose. You're following your heart, your goal, your soul, your intentions are real. And ideally, that sincerity brings through what you produce. We know tomorrow's not promised, and we really don't take advantage of that enough, in my opinion. I think a lot of people feel like, they're running out of time, and they time's not going to stop for anybody. It's natural, and you have to sleep. So, building at a pace that is sustainable for longevity with passion and purpose in your projects should result in success. And if it's not success deemed by an audience or just metrics and numbers, it should be success to you inside, And I think that's something that helps us all sleep at night. And it's not positive spin. It's telling it how it is. We all have different metrics of how we define success. And in a space that moves at the speed of light, and you could blink and miss something huge, I think everybody in it, just for 6 months at a time, is super successful because they've taken the time to see something and to figure it out and to learn more and to explore whatever your heart desires. And I think it's overdue. I think we, as a microwave society that is used to everything instantaneously, I want it now, and coming from a hurry up and wait, I think it's just natural progression that we're able to manifest and create things overnight and have this Midas touch on our creative expression. So full ownership and control, transparency and clarity in our intentions and goals, and a level of authenticity that's never been seen before. So I think all of you guys do a good job at that. And, let's keep making this space more equitable and fair and diverse and inclusive and accessible to our friends and family. And, I appreciate all your time here and shares, and I know others will as well. If you're in the audience and you like this chat, hit 1 or 2 on the keyboard so I can see that you're alive, because that'd be cool. There's like over 100 and something people here. So yeah, that's our time. Appreciate GDA Capital bringing us together. Looking forward to working on NFT Basel again in Miami. And I guess we'll see you guys in NFT NYC. My name's Eric, Motivate. You got Logik, Hrish, Grant, and I don't know how to close this out. So maybe somebody else can do